What's going on YouTube? It's your boy Arbo Man and welcome back to another reaction video. Today we will be back on the Mr.Ballen piece, continuing to play catch up with his videos. We're closing the distance, which is good, but still got a couple to go. So still some work in progress, but we will continue to get there and enjoy the process and enjoy the videos along the way. So I'm glad to see in the comments that a lot of you guys are enjoying the reactions. I try to do my best to make sure that the reactions are genuine and make sure that I have my energy levels up so that you guys can actually enjoy the videos and not make them just stale and boring and me just going okay, interesting. Try to make them actually engaging and try to show some outward emotion, and that's something that I'm still working on. It's something that I'm not used to doing. I'm not really used to showing outward emotion in certain things, so this is something that's new to me. So over time, as you can see, I'm pretty sure over my reactions, for the most part, they've probably gotten better, which is good, which means that I'm understanding how to show that emotion and not keep it internalized. So I'm trying to get better at that through repetition and through just me focusing on it and making sure that I voice and show my emotion rather than just saying what the heck in my brain. Yeah, I'm getting used to saying it out loud, reacting out loud. So hopefully through over time, I continue to get better at these, and hopefully you guys continue to enjoy them. Today's video is called Found Footage, Mortality Mystery Finally Explained. As I've said the last couple videos, this intro is coming before I watch the video. So have not seen it. The only hint is the thumbnail. It's likely a medical mystery, which the medical mysteries have been they've been very good lately. Very, very good. I've been very happy and enjoyed the last few medical mystery videos. So this one looks like it's probably on that same trajectory.
I can see the future.
God bless all of you. Thank you guys for all the continued love and support. If you enjoy this video, feel free to hit that subscribe button in the description. I will leave the link to the original video, as I always do, so that if you're new to his channel, you can go and check out his videos, give him a subscription if you would like. If not, then just go on there, hit the original video, give it a quick thumbs up, and get up out of there. So again, I love y'all, appreciate y'all. Thank you guys very much for continuing to show love and support and give feedback on how we could continue to make these videos better. Again, I'm just making them for fun, not getting paid for these, but I'm enjoying the videos and enjoying seeing other people enjoy the reactions. So I love y'all, appreciate y'all. All that being said, let's go ahead and get into this video.
Today's video is about a medical mystery that ultimately gets solved when somebody uncovers some very unsettling security footage that we will play at the end of this video. But before we get into that story, if you're a fan of the strange, dark, and mysterious story format, then you've come to the right place, because that's all we do, and we upload once a week. So if that's of interest to you, please invite the like button to come over to your nice, calm backyard barbecue, but be sure to replace their hot dog with a lit stick of dynamite. Also, please subscribe to our channel and turn on all notifications so you don't miss any of our weekly uploads. Okay, let's get into today's story.
Be still their hearts. All right, Shakespeare.
On May 27th, 2022, an anesthesiologist named Dr. Chad Marsden stood inside of an operating room with a nurse, a surgeon, and their unconscious patient. Dr. Marsden worked at the Baylor Scott & White Surgicare Center in Dallas, Texas, and it was his job to make sure patients stayed asleep during surgery and then woke up safely afterward. That day, Dr. Marsden and his colleagues—
them boys get paid a lot of money, and if you really look into an anesthesiologist to see how important their job is, you'll find out exactly why they get paid a lot of money.
Were wrapping up a routine liposuction procedure on a middle-aged woman. The surgeon had just finished stitching up the woman's incisions, and so Dr. Marsden, following protocol, began taking her slowly off of anesthesia to wake her back up again. And so Dr. Marsden turned off the anesthesia machine, which is this big rectangular device that takes the liquid anesthesia drugs and converts it into a vapor so it can be breathed in. And then Dr. Marsden removed the breathing mask from the woman's face. Then he changed her IV from an anesthetic drug mixture to regular saline. And so now that these drugs were not being pumped into her system, she would wake up over the next half hour or so. After that, Dr. Marsden and the nurse and the surgeon took their patient on the stretcher and they pushed her out of the OR into the.
Can I just say, I'm sorry, I know I'm trying not to pause a lot. I like this, bro. Like the way that he just steps up the production, man. It makes it just brings new life to the stories. I like the live shots and the little cuts and stuff like that. Like, not don't get me wrong, I liked all the other stories in the past as well. Like, so let's not act like, this is the only thing that I like that he's done. But I just like that it shows that he's going to the next level with some of these stories. It gives some stories a different feel, and I like that.
Hallway and began making their way down towards the recovery room. But as they were walking down this hallway, they bumped into more of their colleagues, another nurse and another anesthesiologist, and the hallway was tight enough that Dr. Marsden had to step aside to let these two pass. And then after they did, and they sort of waved at their colleagues, Marsden, the nurse, and the surgeon continued walking, and as they did, Marsden happened to look down at their patient, and immediately he knew something was wrong. This woman's skin had turned completely gray. Dr. Marsden was totally caught off guard by this. He looked at her vital sign monitor and saw that her blood pressure, which just moments ago had been normal, was now dangerously high. And then, as he's staring at her monitor, her blood pressure plummeted. And then also her oxygen levels fell. And then she began foaming at the mouth. It was clear this woman was going into cardiac arrest, which meant if they didn't act quickly, her heart was going to stop. Now, Dr. Marsden, again, is sort of in shock at how quickly this is happening, but he just jumped into protocol. He began giving the woman chest compressions to make sure blood was flowing to her heart. Meanwhile, the surgeon administered oxygen and blood pressure medication, and the nurse called for an ambulance. The reason she had to call for an ambulance is because the Surgicare Center was not equipped to handle medical emergencies. It was only for scheduled surgeries. And so if there was a medical emergency, all they could do was just stabilize the patient until paramedics arrived. And that's exactly what Dr. Marsden, the nurse, and the surgeon did. They got this woman stable, and then just a minute later, 2 paramedics came running down the hallway. They took possession of the patient, they put her onto their stretcher, out the door they went, they put her in the back of the ambulance, and they sped off to the local hospital. As Dr. Marsden watched the ambulance disappear down the road, he knew his patient was now in good hands, but he was still very shaken by the whole experience. Because this type of emergency, somebody going into unexplained sudden cardiac arrest following a totally routine surgery, was extremely rare. Meaning, for this to happen even just once over the course of somebody's medical career, to have witnessed something like that, was very rare. But for Dr. Marsden, this was not the first time he had seen this. In fact, literally the day before, a different patient at the Surgicare Center had also gone into sudden, unexplained cardiac arrest following their routine procedure. So, as Dr. Marsden went back inside and began heading upstairs to the hospital administrator's office to tell them about this latest emergency, he kept thinking to himself how crazy it was that he had just witnessed these 2 unexplained sudden cardiac arrests basically back to back. But Dr. Marsden just thought to himself, hopefully this is just a really bad coincidence. The Surgicare Center's administrator was a woman named Ashley Burks, and when she heard about this second unexplained cardiac arrest, she knew she had to call a staff meeting. And so that evening, she, along with Dr. Marsden and over 24 other medical staff, doctors, nurses, other anesthesiologists, they met in this conference room in the back of the building. And once everybody was assembled, Ashley began by updating everyone on the 2 patients who had been rushed off to the hospital for their cardiac emergencies, and she said they had stabilized and they'd be okay. But Ashley then said what everybody in the room was thinking, which is sudden unexplained cardiac arrest is so rare, we can't just treat these things like coincidence. Like something specifically must have caused these incidents, and we need to figure out what that thing was. Now, it was possible that the cause or causes behind these incidents were quite simple. Ashley said to the group, the first thing she did was she looked at the 2 patients' files to see if they had specific drug allergies or medical risk factors that might have been overlooked by staff.
That's smart.
When she looked at their files, neither patient had those risk factors or allergies. So that couldn't have been it. Ashley said she also looked for just a common thread between these two incidents. Like, were the patients doing something similar? Were they in for similar reasons? Were they in the same room? But no, they were in different operating rooms, going through different procedures with different medical teams. And so there was no obvious common thread between the two incidents. So Ashley said to the group that the only reasonable explanation that she could think of, at least at this point, was that perhaps the equipment in the Surgicare Center had malfunctioned. And so what she was going to do, out of an abundance of caution, was just begin testing all of the equipment in the building. And so Ashley told the group that in the meantime, while she was doing that, the rest of the staff should be extra attentive to their patients and also be on the lookout for potential problems with hospital equipment. Ashley watched the medical staff all nod their heads in agreement and begin sort of talking to each other, and then she thanked them all for being there and told them they could leave. 3 weeks later, on the afternoon of June 22nd, Ashley stood outside the OR in the hallway, looking through a cabinet that contained surgical drugs. Ashley was still trying to find a connection between those two sudden cardiac arrests. She'd already checked all the Surgicare Center's equipment, from the anesthesia machines to the vital sign monitors to the breathing tubes, and everything was in perfect working condition. And so now, checking these drugs inside of this cabinet was sort of like her last resort. She'd printed out a list of recent drug recalls and was now comparing that list against all of the drugs inside of this cabinet. And so one by one, she was reading a drug and checking the date on it and comparing it with her list to make sure, they were not carrying recalled drugs still. But after going through dozens and dozens of bottles, there was nothing in their cabinet that was on the recall list. So Ashley still just did not have an answer for why those two cardiac emergencies had happened. However, since that staff meeting 3 weeks earlier, the Surgicare Center had not had another cardiac emergency. And so Ashley was thinking to herself, maybe, despite not knowing how this happened, these troubles are in the past. Yeah. Ashley shut the drug cabinet and walked down the hallway towards the break room to grab her lunch. But the moment she walked inside, she saw a group of her colleagues sitting around a table looking very upset. In fact, some people were visibly crying. And so Ashley walked up to them and said, "Hey, what's going on?" And a nurse told her that one of their colleagues, an anesthesiologist named Dr. Melanie Kaspar, was dead. Apparently, the night before, she had had a heart attack at her home, and her husband had found her and called 911, but unfortunately, by the time paramedics arrived, she was already deceased.
Oh, bro, don't tell me that this person been, oh my gosh. Bro, don't tell me that this person been practicing on the patients and they wanted to kill her. Oh, that's foul. That's the first thing that popped up in my head. Like, first thing went through my mind when they said she passed away. I was like, bruh, by a heart attack. It's like similar symptoms. So it's like, because the other two patients is cardiac arrest. It's the same cardiac arrest for her. So I'm like, bro, I hope they wasn't trying to target this doctor, and they were just using basically the patients as like a test run, and they were like, okay, I need to up the dosage because they were able to be saved, so I need to give her more to take. Oh man, that's bro. If that's
Ashley was shocked. She knew Dr. Kaspar, and she knew she was in great shape. She was only in her mid-50s. I mean, she did not seem like someone who might just randomly have a heart attack. But then also, Ashley began to think that she remembered hearing in the last few days that Dr. Kaspar had actually been feeling sick. And so she wondered if maybe whatever illness she was suffering from had something to do with her heart attack. Either way, as the Surgicare administrator, it was Ashley's job to plan staff events like memorial services. And so Ashley told the group, like, hey, I'll get to work putting together a small ceremony for Dr. Kaspar. 5 days later, on June 27th, Ashley was sitting in front of her office computer ordering supplies for Dr. Kaspar's memorial when suddenly she heard these loud, fast footsteps out in the hall as if somebody was sprinting towards her office. And then a moment later, Ashley saw her door burst open and the anesthesiologist, Dr. Chad Marsden, was standing there, and he looked absolutely horrified, and he just said to her, "It's happening again." Ashley's stomach dropped, and she jumped up and sprinted after Dr. Marsden, and they made their way to the hallway outside of the OR. And when they got there, Ashley immediately heard the sound of that long single beep of somebody's heart monitor flatlining, and she looked over and she saw one of the doors to an operating room was open, and inside she saw a surgeon performing chest compressions on an elderly patient. And even from out in the hall, Ashley could tell this man was unconscious, his skin was gray, and he was foaming at the mouth. It was exactly like the other cardiac emergencies that had happened before. Except this time was worse, because that beep, that flatlining beep, meant that this man's heart had actually stopped. And so Ashley just stood there in horror, watching the surgeon perform these chest compressions, knowing that if that didn't work, if they couldn't get this man's heart started again, he was about to die. Just then, Ashley heard the sound of the doors leading into the OR hallway open, and these two paramedics came rushing inside, and right as they passed her and got to the doorway leading into where this man was basically dying, Ashley heard the sound of the flatline beep turn into regular beeping, which meant the surgeon who was doing chest compressions had managed to restart this man's heart. And so Ashley was relieved, but by no means thought they're out of the woods yet. I mean, this man clearly is going through a medical emergency here. But the paramedics got the man off the OR table, they put him on a stretcher, and they wheeled him away. And so once they were gone, Ashley, Dr. Marsden, and the surgeon who'd been doing the chest compressions, they all just looked at each other like, what is going on here? Clearly, there is something causing all these sudden cardiac arrests, but still nobody knew what it was. Ashley just stood there for a moment, feeling absolutely sick to her stomach. If it wasn't the drugs, and if it wasn't the medical equipment that caused these sudden cardiac arrests,
I don't think it could be.
Well, Ashley was determined to find out.
Let's go, Ashley. Lock in. Lock in, Ashley. Man, hey, somebody done figured it out. That's all I can say. What's this? What's the new saying now? I understand it now. Somebody understand it now. They done figured out the right dosage, and they trying to take people out. I don't understand, like, why though. I don't understand why people do that. Like, what's the point of just why? What are these people doing to you that makes you want to make them suffer cardiac arrest for what? What are they? These people coming in here getting surgeries, getting liposuctions. How is that bothering you? What is that doing to you that you feel like you need to do this to somebody? Why? What? What for? I don't understand people sometimes, man. I don't get it.
Just a reminder, my very first book, Mr.Ballen Presents Strange, Dark, and Mysterious, The Graphic Stories, is out right now and shipping worldwide. You can find it.
Send me a copy. Send me a copy, bro. I'll take it.
Over the next 2 months, Ashley interviewed and observed every single employee of the Surge Care Center to make sure they really were following their protocol absolutely to a T. And one after another, through her research, she discovered that they all were. They were doing exactly what they were supposed to be doing. So the cardiac arrests could not be chalked up to faulty equipment, recalled drugs, or human error. And yet, the cardiac emergencies kept on happening at the Surgicare Center. There were 3 incidents in July and 4 more incidents in the first 3 weeks of August. And so in total, that made 10 patients at the Surgicare Center who had all gone into sudden unexplained cardiac arrest.
And 1 employee.
Now, none of them had died, but Ashley knew a few of them had been left with permanent heart damage. People were getting seriously injured on her watch. And she felt like, she can't figure out what's going on here. And so it's just a matter of time until somebody does die from one of these cardiac emergencies. And so she was feeling completely overwhelmed and stressed out and desperate. Until August 24th, when 2 things happened in quick succession. First, in the morning of August 24th, Ashley received a phone call from an officer at the Dallas Police Department. And they told her that the autopsy had been completed on Dr. Melanie Kaspar, the anesthesiologist who had died back in June from a heart attack at her home. And this police officer thought that Ashley really needed to know that her heart attack had not been natural. It was actually caused by an overdose of a drug called bupivacaine. So Ashley knew what bupivacaine was. It was a drug that was basically only used in surgical anesthesia. But Ashley had never heard of anybody abusing this drug or overdosing on it, because bupivacaine does not make you high like morphine or fentanyl does. It's closer to Novocaine. It's like a numbing agent. And so Ashley told the officer how weird it was, the idea that she had died of an overdose of bupivacaine, of all drugs. And the officer agreed with her. But regardless, he thought Ashley should know, because he thought it was possible that Dr. Kaspar had gotten the bupivacaine from the Surgicare Center. And so, feeling totally confused, Ashley thanked the officer for telling her, then they hung up, and then Ashley walked to the OR hallway to check the drug cabinet where drugs like bupivacaine were stored. But as soon as she entered that hallway, the second thing happened that day. Ashley heard chaos break out inside of an operating room where she knew an 18-year-old boy was undergoing what should have been a routine sinus surgery. And so she watched helplessly as the doors flung open and a nurse came running out into the hall to call an ambulance. And then inside the room, Ashley saw an anesthesiologist performing chest compressions on this boy, and another doctor was administering oxygen and blood pressure medication. It was the same nightmare playing out now for an 11th time. But this time, after the EMTs wheeled this boy away to be driven off to the local hospital, Ashley was so desperate to figure out what was going on here that she just couldn't wait. And so she rounded up a couple of hospital staffers that were nearby, and they went into that operating room, and they checked the medical equipment, they checked the drugs that had been used, they searched the floor for anything that might have had something to do with this. I mean, they even searched the trash can. And in the trash, Ashley found something that the second she saw it, it made her blood run cold. She couldn't believe somebody would do something this awful, or why they would do this. And so she took the thing she found in the trash, and she ran out of the operating room and upstairs to call the police. Minutes later, 2 police officers arrived at the Surgicare Center, and they saw what Ashley had found in the trash. When they looked at it, they knew they had a very serious situation on their hands. And so right away, they roped off the operating room where this 18-year-old boy had been, and they began looking for evidence inside of there. And then also, they began reviewing the security camera footage from the OR hallway. And as they reviewed this footage, they would find something truly chilling going on in that hallway that totally explained all of the sudden cardiac arrests that had been happening inside the Surgicare Center. This is what they saw on the clearest piece of footage, which was shot 5 days earlier on August 19th. A hospital employee is seen walking down the OR hallway carrying a stack of papers under his arm. He walks past a couple of his colleagues, and he arrives in front of this big metallic device that sort of looks like a refrigerator, and he opens it up, and he reaches inside, and he pulls out a saline IV bag. Now, when he does this, nobody else in the hallway bats an eye, because this is a totally normal thing to do. That metal device was a warming machine where saline IV bags were stored to be used during or after surgeries. Okay. At any given point, this warmer would contain a few dozen IV bags, and whenever it got low, certain staff members would restock it. But the police watched this footage over and over again, and they saw this employee who walks up to the warmer.
Oh, he already had one.
Carrying a stack of papers.
He had one in his
hiding something.
He had one, bro. He had. Bro, he had, like, if you go, bro, he had one hidden under the paper. This man is foul. Like, I didn't even notice that the first time. You could see it, like, you could see the liquid in the bag moving. Oh, he is foul, bro.
Was not just carrying a stack
of
papers.
You can see it. You can see it.
Hiding something
that is
within those papers. His own saline IV bag. And so before this man takes out an IV bag from the warmer,
he put one in there.
He takes this hidden one and places it in the warmer as well. So he's basically swapped one for one. And this was absolutely bizarre because it was not his job to be restocking the warmer. He shouldn't have been putting anything inside of the warmer. And so about 30 minutes after this employee has placed his own IV bag inside of the warmer, a nurse comes out of the OR, walks down the hallway, opens up the warmer, takes one of the warmed up IV bags, carries it down the hall, goes back into the OR, and minutes later, her patient goes into cardiac arrest. It would turn out that nurse had inadvertently grabbed the saline bag that the male employee had secretly placed just minutes before. And she didn't know that that saline bag is what caused the cardiac arrest. Nobody knew until days later when Ashley is so desperate to figure out why all these patients are going into cardiac arrest that she began searching through the trash, and she would find an empty IV bag, and she would see very clearly there was a little puncture on it, just big enough for a needle. And so after seeing this security footage, the police analyzed that empty IV bag that Ashley had found in the trash with the puncture on it to see exactly what was in that IV that went into the 18-year-old who also went into cardiac arrest. And inside, they found a combination of 3 drugs that when combined are like a biological bomb that will send somebody into cardiac arrest within minutes. They were lidocaine, which is an anesthetic, epinephrine, which is basically pure adrenaline, And crucially, the third drug found was bupivacaine, the anesthetic that Dr. Melanie Kaspar had overdosed on, which caused her to die of a heart attack. And this discovery meant that Dr. Kaspar's death was almost certainly connected to these poisoned IV bags. In the few days before Dr. Kaspar's death, she had been feeling sick and dehydrated. And on the day of her death, she was feeling so unwell at work that, unbeknownst to any of her colleagues, she had taken a saline IV bag from that warmer and brought it home with her to rehydrate herself. But unfortunately, the one that she grabbed was one of the poisoned ones. When paramedics arrived at Dr. Kaspar's home, they found her still with the IV needle in her arm. But at the time, nobody connected her death with all of the cardiac emergencies at the Surgicare Center. Well, nobody except for the employee who was actually poisoning the IV bags. That employee was an anesthesiologist, but it was not Dr. Chad Marsden. It was the person that Dr. Marsden had to get out of the way for in the hallway that first time his patient had gone into cardiac arrest. The man who was doing the tampering was Dr. Reynaldo Ortiz. He was 58 years old, and he had only worked at the Surgicare Center for about a year. And he had flown mostly under the radar there until May 19th of 2022, which was about a week before the sudden, unexplained cardiac arrests had begun at the Surgicare Center. On that day, on May 19th, Dr. Ortiz had allowed one of his patients to stop breathing, nearly killing the patient. And so as a result of that incident, Dr. Ortiz had been placed under internal investigation by the Surgicare Center, and he was facing the possibility of losing his medical license because of negligence. So to try to avoid losing his medical license, Dr. Ortiz decided he would just try to make all the other doctors look negligent too, taking the attention off of himself. And so he began sabotaging his colleagues' surgeries by injecting those drugs into their patients' IV bags, knowing it would cause cardiac arrest. Now, none of the patients who went into cardiac arrest at the Surgicare Center died. However, Dr. Kaspar, who took that tampered IV bag home with her, did die. And so ultimately, Dr. Ortiz was responsible for her death. In April of 2024, Dr. Ortiz was found guilty on multiple charges, and he is currently facing a sentence of up to 190 years in prison.
Good. Hope you never get out. That's messed up, man. Just because you screw up and then you want to try to cost everybody else their medical license because you don't want to do right. That's so messed up, bro. I don't understand people that come up with these irrational decisions. Like okay, even if you didn't allow the patient to stop breathing purposely, what the hell is doing this going to do? Just defend yourself. Okay, it was I apologize, it was an accident. Like, everybody knows that being an anesthesiologist is a tough job. They get paid a crap load of money for this reason, because you can easily kill somebody if you make one mistake. One little tiny itty bitty mistake can be the end of somebody just that quick. So there's a reason why they get paid a lot of money. But you just have to do your best to defend yourself and make it known that it was just a mistake and you didn't do it. Turn into do some crap like this? Like, what does that solve? They got security cameras, bro. Like, you didn't think they was going to figure it out eventually? Like, you just thought that nobody was just going to ever check the security footage and see you hiding a saline bag under your arm. Like, that's what we thinking? Like, I don't understand why people do stuff like this, bro. Like, you harming innocent people, and for what? Like, okay, when you did it the first couple of times, that should have been it. First of all, and it should have been it when you killed Dr. Kaspar. That should have been that right there should have been like, okay, I'm done with this. And then you keep going. For what? Like, bro, you wasn't doing that for your medical. You was a part of you liked doing that, and you did it because you enjoyed it. I don't want to look at his face anymore. He was doing that crap because you enjoyed harming those people, and that's why he did. Not you, Mr.Ballen, but that previous guy. Now, you did that jump because you wanted to, and that's foul. Like, this was a very, very good story. Very, very good. And it's very sad, though. Rest in peace to Dr. Kaspar. I hate the fact that she had to lose her life like that. I hope her family has found comfort in, knowing that she got justice for losing her life. I know that's not going to bring her life back. Then it's not going to bring back the person that they love, but at least they have some comfort in knowing, you know, that the person that did this to her is, going to be held responsible for it. But, I understand that's not going to bring her back. So that, it just sounds like, a bunch of talking. But I'm glad that he got caught. I hate the fact that she had to lose her life because of it. And I just wish people would just make better decisions and just stop harming people because you make a mistake. It's the same thing with people that do these mass shootings and stuff. Like, bro, if you don't like your life, that's fine. If you don't want to be here, that's fine. Don't go killing other people because you don't want to be here. If you don't want to be here, you do it to yourself. Leave everybody else alone. These people ain't got nothing to do with that. You about to lose your license? Okay, that's fine. You do what you got to do to make sure you keep it, and then go from there. But you don't go harming other people and dang near killing other people because you want to try to make other people look bad. Like, we got to make better decisions as people, and like that's just ridiculous, and that bothers me. I hate stories like this because I just don't like when people do things like that. Like, don't harm other people because you are not okay with your life, or you're not okay with things in your life, or you don't like your life. So let me go shoot up a mall. Let me go shoot up Walmart because I'm upset with my life and because I don't like living. So let me go shoot up Walmart. So, and then no, do it to yourself. Okay? Leave other people, innocent people that have people that love them and want to see them and expecting them to come home. Leave them alone. You don't like your life, then you stick to yours and yours only. Leave the innocent people alone. These people ain't bothering you. They ain't doing nothing to you. Coming in there getting minor surgeries done, and then here you come being ignorant for what? Like, anyway, man, I hope y'all enjoyed the story. I really, really enjoyed it. I'm glad that Dr. Caspar got justice. Rest in peace to her. She did seem like a nice, kind soul. And a lot of I hate that people, I just hate when stuff like this happens to anybody in general, whether you're a good person or not. But you shouldn't be losing your life to somebody else's ignorant decision. So regardless, I'm glad she got justice. I hope you guys enjoyed the story. I really enjoyed it. Looking forward to the next one. Like, this one was very good. Looking forward to the next one. Rest in peace, Dr. Caspar. Much love to you and your family. I'm glad you got the justice you deserve. God bless everybody that's watching this video. And yeah, with that being said, I'll see y'all in the next one. Stay blessed.